Hello again, and welcome back to Faint Echoes. Before we begin the evening's gentle descent into history, I wonder, where are you listening from tonight? Maybe you're curling up in Lagos, Nigeria, drifting into a quiet suburb, or perhaps nestled somewhere across the globe. Wherever you are, thank you for letting me guide you tonight. Take a moment now, let your shoulders melt, feel the rhythm of your breath slow. We're privileged in this era. A simple trip to the clinic, a dose of medicine, and relief eases a fever. But tonight, let us travel to a world where every cough could be the end, and where medical practice teetered on ritual, hope, and fear. As you settle deeper into your pillow, let your mind wander back to the 17th century. We'll follow a plague doctor through misty streets and dim rooms, learning their routines, doubts, and the subtle humanity that persisted amid suffering. Close your eyes, let the day's weight fall away, and imagine yourself stepping into those well-worn leather boots. It begins in the half-light. You're not quite awake, not fully asleep, just hovering in that strange moment when time feels weightless, adrift between dream and duty. Outside, the sky is still dark, but not completely. There's a faint band of pale light rising over the tiled rooftops of a city you've come to know too well, too intimately. Your eyes open slowly. The ceiling above you is warped wood, sagging slightly under years of damp. Cobwebs cling to one corner where a cracked beam meets plaster, and you stare at it for a long time, not quite ready to move. A chill hangs in the room, not the crisp chill of winter, but the damp, bone-deep kind, the kind that seeps into your joints and lingers there. You sit up. Your room is quiet, always quiet. The thick silence of a world locked behind doors. Outside, life goes on behind shuttered windows and sealed cracks. No children's laughter, no barking dogs, just the distant toll of a bell, soft and hollow, marking the passing of someone else again. Your first task today, like every day, is cleansing. You rise slowly from your straw mattress, stiff from the previous day's work. The woolen blanket clings to your coat. It's rough spun and itchy, but warm. You run your hands through your hair, feeling the oil there. No time for luxuries like proper baths. Hygiene is simple. Rinse your face with a basin of cold, rain-caught water. The basin, made of dented tin, carries the metallic smell of age. It jolts you gently awake. You dry your face on the sleeve of yesterday's robe. Now begins the preparation. This takes time. It must take time. At the foot of your bed, a low wooden chest holds your garments, your armor. One layer at a time, each piece has its purpose. Each has its history. You don't hurry. There is no rushing this process. You reach in first for the underlayer, a linen shirt, long and coarse. Its fabric scratches at your skin as you pull it over your head. Then woolen breeches, pulled tight and tied at the knee. Long socks, worn through at the toes. Next, the robe, thick, waxed, and dark brown, made of canvas soaked in oils and vinegar. You remember the craftsman who tailored it, years ago now. He laughed at your measurements, called the mask an actor's whimsy. He's long dead now. You slide the robe over your head and let it settle around you, heavy as a burden. The sleeves fall past your wrists. The gloves come next, leather, supple but creased. You roll them up slowly over your wrists, fingers flexing inside. The smell of leather, wax, and vinegar surrounds you. Then, the boots, tall, black, hardened. The soles are layered with wood and animal fat to resist wetness. They creak as you move. Lastly, the beaked mask. You hold it in both hands for a moment. It's oddly beautiful. The long beak curves like a raven's, and within its hollow are herbs, dried lavender, crushed mint, cinnamon bark, and sometimes rose petals. Their scent isn't just pleasant, it's necessary. You've convinced yourself that breathing through this mask has spared your life more than once. Perhaps it has. You lower it over your face. The leather straps snap tight behind your head. The world narrows. Your vision compresses through twin round glass lenses, thick and foggy. You breathe in. a dry blend of herbs and damp wool. You are ready. The streets are still. You step outside and are greeted not by sound, but stillness. The sun is barely up. Thin fog curls along the street, swirling around cobblestones and low gutters. Your boots strike the stones with slow, deliberate taps. 1, 2, 3. They echo slightly, as if the city were whispering back. The air smells of stone, of rot, of smoke from fires long since gone out. Somewhere in the distance a horse snorts. Its cart stands motionless, abandoned at the edge of an alley. Near a shuttered window, a line of old bread crusts hangs from a rope. A charm or an offering. No one comes out, no one waves. Doors remain closed. Curtains twitch, then still. You are both feared and expected. The first home is marked with a chalked symbol on the door, a large pale X in rough lines. You pause in front of it. From your satchel you retrieve a sprig of rosemary soaked in wine and tuck it into your glove. A habit you picked up from another doctor, now gone. You knock gently. There's a pause. Then a latch shifts. The door opens only slightly, enough to allow a whisper of air to reach you. A woman peers out, eyes red, face pale. She nods. Wordlessly, she steps aside. You enter the home. Inside the sick room. The air is thicker here, cloying. It clings to your throat. The smell is a blend of unwashed bodies, damp wool, old soup, and the unmistakable undercurrent of sickness. You walk carefully, cane tapping ahead of you, not for balance, but to maintain distance, to probe for signs, to gesture when hands are not safe. The sick are in the next room. 2 figures on a straw mattress, mother and son. The boy is perhaps 10, face flushed and slick with sweat. His mother strokes his brow. She does not cry. She has cried already. You kneel near the boy. You don't touch him. Instead, you observe the color of his skin, the flutter of his breath, the smell of his breath. Your notes are silent, internal. You ask questions. When did the fever begin? Is there swelling? Any bleeding from the gums? The answers come in hushed tones. You nod. You open a small wooden box. Inside, a phial of vinegar, a dried root, a scrap of cloth. You soak the cloth in vinegar and hand it to the mother. She dabs the boy's lips. You instruct her to keep him warm, to fan him gently, to pray. You give her no hope, nor do you deny it. You simply move on. Hours pass slowly. The rest of the morning unfolds like a slow dirge. You walk, you knock, you enter, you observe. Each house is different, but the same. A baker, a merchant's wife, a child, a priest, all lying on low beds, all watched by someone who has not yet succumbed. Each moment is quiet. The loudest thing is often your own breath, filtered through herbs, echoing inside the beak. A slow in, a slower out. Occasionally, you stop in the street and write, "House of cobbler, wife ill, 2 sons well." Merchant, mild signs, bleeding gums. Child, no response, likely soon. You do not write names, only roles. Details, symptoms. The city is too large, the dying too many. Brief respite. By late midday, you find your way to a narrow alley, a safe path toward your small rented room. You remove your gloves, hang them carefully. The mask comes off last. The scent of herbs replaced by sweat and air. You place the beak mask face down on a cloth. You rinse your hands with wine. You peel off each layer carefully and hang them near the fire. You boil water and cleanse your face with lavender soap. You drink from a pewter cup, stale wine, diluted with water. It is enough. You eat slowly, bread crusts and preserved olives. The bread is dense, and you chew until your jaw tires. The silence is thick. You write in your journal, thoughts, not diagnoses. I saw a child laugh today, strange given the fever. I wonder how long that laughter remains after the illness takes hold. You stare at the fire for a long time. Evening calls. There is no rest. You rise again, don the robe, replace the herbs in the beak, fresh rosemary, a few cloves. The scent is stronger now, more bitter, but you welcome it. Evening visits are the worst. Candles cast flickering shadows across faces racked by fever. Rooms are dim. Families look to you with quiet despair. They expect wisdom. You give them ritual. They ask about mercy. You offer cloth soaked in vinegar. Sometimes the dead have already been removed. You find a mattress still warm, with only an imprint left behind. Other times, they beg you to stay. They call you doctor, though you rarely heal. Night returns. Your final stop is a convent. The sisters watch silently as you pass through cold stone corridors. One of them speaks, 3 more since morning. You bow slightly. The dead are laid out. You recite a prayer under your breath. Not because it helps, but because it steadies you. It is a small human rhythm. By the time you return to your room, night has fully descended. The sky is cloudless. A single star blinks through fog. You remove your robes. You sit in silence. The mask rests on your desk. Watching, hollow-eyed, patient, you pour hot water into a small bowl. You drop in dried mint leaves. You inhale. You sip. You stare. The fire dies down. Your casebook lies open. You write 18 homes, 7 deaths, 2 recoveries. You pause. You close the book. You lie down. The straw mattress creaks beneath you. You stare at the ceiling again. The same crack in the plaster, the same cobweb. Your last thought before sleep is not of death, but of quiet. Let us now drift further, softly, from the damp, narrow streets of plague-ridden Europe to the golden-tinted lanes of Provence. This is where a young man named Michel de Nostradame emerges, not yet the world-famous seer, but a healer, shaped by curiosity, ritual, and sorrow. Provence, birth in a house of learning. Born in December 1503 in Saint-Rémy de Provence, Michel descends from a family steeped in scholarship. His maternal grandfather was a physician and a tutor in classical languages. His paternal ancestor, a converted Jew, ensured his early education in Latin, Hebrew, and mathematics. From childhood, he is a reader of stars and leaves, more drawn to herb jars and scrolls than to swords or ceremony. A student interrupted by disease. At age 14 or 15, Michel enrolls at the University of Avignon to study the trivium. But within a year, the university closes, again due to plague. He leaves with no degree, but carries with him a deeper lesson. Disease is real, and it will not wait. He spends the next 8 years roaming the countryside, learning from midwives, apothecaries, folk healers, testing tinctures, powders, and poultices on willing patients. These years, though unstructured, become his foundation. Montpellier, between academia and practice. In 1529, his hunger for formal study leads him to the University of Montpellier. But suspicion arises. The medical faculty frowns on his apothecary background. He is expelled soon after. Still, his spirit remains intact. He becomes an apothecary of uncommon originality in southern France, traveling, practicing, testing remedies. He pioneers cleanliness and open-air convalescence, precisely when most doctors still advocate bloodletting and fear open windows. The rose pill, a moment of hope. Among his creations is the famous rose pill, a lozenge made of rose hips, cloves, cypress, cinnamon, and other botanicals. The method is humble. Patients are told to hold the pill under their tongue, but within its herbal core lies vitamin C, an unrecognized shield against infection. The pill doesn't cure the plague, but it brings comfort, warmth, and a whisper of safety. The locals begin to call him Sauveur, savior of the sick. Agen, love, loss, and isolation. By 1531, Michel arrives in Agen under the patronage of scholar Jules César Scaliger. He marries, accounts vary on his first wife's name, but they bear 2 children. Yet fate intervenes again. In 1534, plague descends once more. His wife and children fall ill. He wields every remedy, Hygiene, rose pills, diet, prayers, but death stays. They die. Reports say the townspeople turn away from him. His patron withdraws. His grief drives him to wander, wandering and healing. Over the next decade, Michel travels across France and Italy, in Aix, Marseille, Salon de Provence. He works tirelessly, cleaning, removing corpses from streets, insisting on open windows, clean linens, radical hygiene for the era. Once, in Aix-en-Provence, he treats patients for 9 consecutive months. His efforts earn the city a lifelong pension and its heartfelt gratitude. He publishes pamphlets detailing rose pill formulas, dietary advice, and disinfection methods. He challenges the medical consensus, spurns bleeding in plague cases, shames stale indoor air, condemns crowded, unclean streets, crossing into the occult. In the late 1530s, his medical reputation spreads, yet his interest in astrology grows too, through encounters with scholars, Kabbalists, and mystics. In 1538, he brushes with the Inquisition over comments about a statue. He chooses to travel abroad rather than fight. These years, he visits Italy, Greece, Turkey, learning obscure philosophies, occult lore, hermetic traditions. All the while, he continues to treat plague sufferers, mixing herbs, cleaning, healing, a man straddling science and mysticism, settling and writing. By 1547, he settles in Salon de Provence and marries again, Anne Ponsard, a wealthy widow. They have 6 children, and he begins writing almanacs from 1550 onward, blending weather, remedies, calendar notes. In 1555, he publishes Traité des fardements et confitures, a medical manifesto of cosmetics, preserves, powders, plague remedies, and rose pills. He offers recipes for candied orange peels, cherry syrups, but aerated with antiseptic wisdom. A man of 2 worlds. Despite his healing, his reputation splits between medicine and mystery. Some call him heretic, others miracle worker. He's summoned by Catherine de' Medici to Paris. His prophecies soon overshadow his medicine, but it's his knowledge of germs and hygiene that saved lives. He becomes physician to the royal court. Yet even as his fame grows, he continues mixing rose pills in his salon lab, cleaning wounds, breathing in lavender fumes, journaling each balance of air, linen, diet. The final whisper. In his final years, he is burdened by gout and heart failure. His hand trembles, yet he writes until the last hours. On July 1st, 1566, the man who faced death countless times foretells his own. On July 2nd, or 1, he dies, but not as a seer, as a human, worn, wise, softened by sorrow and hope. A man who dared to curl a rose pill between his lips, to cleanse a room with fresh air, to offer calm in the endless echo of croaking bells. Soft fade with a gentle exhale, a sparrow's distant call, and the calm sigh of dusk. Nostradamus' tale is not only prophecy, it's perseverance, a lesson in caring for bodies and souls when hope flickers thin. Now let us drift deeper, beneath the cobblestones, into the quiet earth where plague took its victims. And now we'll descend into the mysteries of Europe's plague pits and the archaeologies of absence. And so we come to the final stretch of this long, quiet road through a chapter of human history, often remembered only in whispers and shadows. You've walked beside him, this strange, silent figure in black, the plague doctor. You've seen the cracked streets beneath his boots, heard the distant bells tolling once, then twice, then not at all. You've stood beneath flickering candlelight in rooms where breath was shallow and prayers came fast. You've watched from behind his mask the passage of hours, marked not by clocks, but by coughs and curtains drawn closed. But now, as the streets begin to empty and the last shutters creak softly shut, the doctor begins his final rounds. Imagine him walking slowly, almost reverently through a sleeping city. The moon hangs like a dull coin above the rooftops. The wind stirs gently, tugging at the hem of his cloak. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then silence. Always silence. His cane touches the cobblestones with a soft, steady rhythm. Tap, 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 like the ticking of a clock only he can hear. He does not rush. There is no need to rush anymore. For now, the fever has quieted, the chaos has passed, the dead are buried, and the living have begun to stitch the fabric of life back together, one cautious thread at a time. But he, the doctor, is not part of that mending. He is the shadow that walked beside the storm. He came with it, and like it, he will fade. He steps through an alley where he once comforted a crying child, whose mother had already slipped beyond reach. He passes the wooden stoop where a merchant once offered him a gold coin to save a wife who was already gone. He pauses before a church, the doors long since barred, where his boots once left streaks of dried mud across the marble floor. Every step is memory, every step a farewell. And as he walks, the night grows thicker. Not darker, just quieter. Even the city seems to exhale. He returns to his small room. Not much more than a cot, a basin, and a desk with papers no one will read. He removes the mask, slowly, carefully, as though the act is sacred. Underneath, his face is gaunt, weathered, lined. A man aged not just by time, but by witnessing. A man who bore no sword, cast no spells, and raised no flag, but who faced death each day with nothing more than observation and presence. There is no parade waiting for him, no poem, no statue, no soft applause, just a basin of still water, a faint crack in the wall, the whisper of linen sheets. And yet in the silence there is dignity. There is dignity in having stayed. There is dignity in having seen and still gently returned. You see, for all the strange myths that grew around him, the plague doctor was never a sorcerer or savior. He was a witness, a recorder, a quiet resistance against forgetting. When the bells rang no longer, he wrote. When the prayers faltered, he listened. When the healers fled, he stayed. And when no one could stop the dying, he bore it, so the dying wouldn't be alone. And now, you've borne it too, quietly, softly, without turning away. You've carried his lamp for just a while. You've seen the world he walked, the cracked plaster, the soot-stained masks, the sighs behind locked doors, and now that lamp is dimming. The doctor lies back on his narrow bed, his boots still dusty, his hands finally still. He gazes at the rafters, and perhaps for the first time in years allows himself to feel tired. Beyond the shuttered window, dawn is faintly blooming, and somewhere in the waking world a bell tolls once more. Not in mourning this time, but in memory. Let its echo carry you now, back from the alleyways of the past, back from the silence of forgotten rooms, back to your own stillness. Breathe. Let the air in your lungs be lighter than his. Let the bed beneath you feel softer than his straw. Let your dreams be freer than the memories he carried. He has rested now, and so may you. Tonight, sleep not in sorrow, but in reverence for the quiet watchers of history, the nameless keepers of its weight, the silent ones who walked the edge of shadow, so that others could step into light. The doctor's story is complete. Let it settle in your mind like dust on old parchment, and let the silence that follows be not empty, but full of peace. Sleep well, sleep deeply, sleep now. Let's return to soft fabrics, thick walls, gilded mirrors that reflect your own anxious face in the flickering candlelight. You are noble. You have land. You have servants. You even have hope. Though it has grown brittle lately, you try to ignore the smell drifting in from outside, the faint sour wind, the sound of bells. But even your carved stone walls cannot keep it all out. Let's walk together, slowly, room by room. Let's live this day again, inside a house that feels more like a tomb the longer it tries to shut out death. Morning, the day begins in fragrance and silence. You wake slowly, not because you have rested well, but because dreams no longer comfort you. The room is warm, stifling even. The windows haven't been opened in weeks. The maid enters with her head lowered, moving like a ghost in slippers. She carries your linen robe soaked in vinegar and thyme, laid out on a chair near the hearth. The robe is lined with lavender and a sprig of dried orange peel tucked in the seam, meant to keep the death out of your blood. The basin by your bed is full of water tinged pink from rose petals. You wash with trembling fingers. The water is warm, but your skin feels cold, as though something beyond you has settled just beneath the surface. Servants have already walked the halls, relighting the perfumed braziers. One is near your door, where clove and cedar are smoldering. The scent is heavy, medicinal, comforting at first, but almost suffocating over time. You step onto the carpet. The sound of your own breath is louder than usual. Morning tasks, protection through performance. Before breakfast, you perform your rituals. You do not call them that, but that is what they are. You chew dried angelica root. You wear gloves, silk-lined, though there's no one to shake hands with anymore. You hold your breath while passing through certain doorways. Your physician has not visited in days. He sent a letter instead. Avoid overexertion. Avoid melancholy. Avoid air from the west. You obey all of it. A servant brings in your aromatics pouch, a finely stitched sachet filled with crushed juniper, cardamom, and powdered amber. You hang it on a chain across your chest, close to your heart. Somewhere in the corridor you hear a cough. The maid flinches. You say nothing. Midday. Meals that don't taste like meals. Your kitchen staff has shrunk. Some are ill, others fled. Now meals are made by 3 silent women who never look you in the eye. Your lunch is served on silver. You eat alone. There are no feasts now. Only dishes chosen not for pleasure, but for function. Today's meal, quince syrup in wine, boiled chicken with rosemary, slices of orange, carefully peeled and arranged like flower petals. You chew slowly, not out of courtesy, but because every bite matters now. Citrus is a shield, spices are protection. Bread must be warm, nothing stale, nothing cold. No one speaks. A page boy pours water into your goblet and then quickly wipes the rim with cloth soaked in vinegar. You nod. He nods back. You both understand, without words, that fear now lives in all things. The dining room is grand, but it feels too big now. The laughter that once filled it lingers like perfume, long after the wearer is gone. Afternoon diversions, the illusion of control. What do you do with your time when time no longer obeys? You read, but only safe books. Scripture, herbals, poems about gardens. The library is vast, but most of it feels too dangerous to touch. You try embroidery. You cannot hold the needle steady. Your fingers feel distant. Sometimes a private tutor comes, masked and gloved, to discuss philosophy. He stands at the far end of the room. His voice echoes oddly beneath the cloth. Today, a different visitor arrives. The apothecary. He wears brown wool robes soaked in oils. He presents you with a potion, a thick liquid in a glass vial sealed with wax. It contains marjoram, vinegar, crushed pearls. He calls it life elixir. It tastes like rust. You sip it anyway. He asks permission to purify the corners of your chamber. You allow it. He burns myrrh and mutters Latin phrases as he circles the bedposts. As he leaves, you notice a tremor in his hands. You do not ask about his last client. Sunset shadows, long evenings with longer thoughts. Evening approaches. The world outside your window is painted in soft gold, but you do not look out. The window has been sealed with wax and linen. No air must come in. Candles are lit early, casting long shadows across the parquet floor. Your servants prepare a fruit plate. It is a luxury still afforded. Grapes, pear slices, preserved lemon. You chew each one slowly, as though it contains not flavor but safety. You once hosted concerts in this very room, harpsichords, viols, flutes. Now, the only sound is the wind moaning through the chimney and the crackle of oil lamps. You pick up a small mirror. Your reflection looks older than you remember. The eyes are the same, but they've learned something now about how death waits quietly, even in places it is told not to enter. Nightfall, cloaked in fragrance, shrouded in ritual. The house prepares for bed. Servants hang sprigs of thyme over each bedpost. They change the incense in the wall sconces. The bed sheets are sprinkled with powdered rose and mint. This, they say, will protect your lungs. You wear a sleeping gown lined with musk-scented fabric. A ribbon soaked in camphor is tied around your wrist. A bowl of warm milk is left beside your bed. Not for nourishment, but to trap spirits should they arrive. The doors are bolted, not just locked, sealed. As you lie back, staring into the shadows above your canopy, your thoughts drift. You think of those who fled, to the mountains, to other cities, to the sea. Some escaped, many did not. You think of those who stayed, servants who sing to themselves when they clean now, friends who no longer visit, lovers who fell silent. And finally you think of yourself, still here, wrapped in silk, surrounded by saints carved into wood, defended by perfumes and precious stones, and yet just as fragile as the peasant coughing behind a stall in the marketplace. A closing whisper, the stillness of power. In your world, everything is curated. Every scent, every sound, every spoonful of food chosen to maintain the illusion of control. But outside, the world is not curated. It is coughing, moaning, ringing with bells. The plague does not ask if you own land. It does not bow to jewels. It doesn't smell the oranges or fear the incantations. All it knows is how to wait. And still, you lie in bed, safe for now, draped in lavender, surrounded by silence. And you sleep, not because you are unafraid, but because you are too tired to be afraid anymore. Let's linger here a while longer. You are still at the edge of the town, where the sound of life has faded, and only the soft rustling of trees remains. You sit quietly by the gentle slope of the land, knowing that underneath lie hundreds, perhaps thousands, of silent companions. There's no rush. The air is cool here. You can stay. The presence of plague pits is not always marked. They don't announce themselves. They sleep quietly under new neighborhoods, schoolyards, churches, and public parks. Trees have grown atop some of them, roots tangled into forgotten ribs. Others remain undisturbed, passed over by centuries of cautious memory. Let's sink deeper, not into the ground itself, but into the layers of meaning, the quiet oddities, and the soft contradictions buried there. A cultural map of burial beliefs. Each culture treated the plague differently, and so each pit has its own personality. In northern Italy, records show that during major outbreaks, flagellants, those who believed in atoning for sin through self-punishment, sometimes led burial teams. They sang softly as they dug, murmured Latin verses with each shovelful, and wore simple hoods over their heads. The pits they dug were often marked by crosses made of bundled reeds, nothing more. By the time winter came, those symbols would be gone. In Germany, some regions buried their dead with herbs tied at the wrist, bundles of mugwort and elderflower thought to ward off restless spirits. In the city of Hamburg, one pit was discovered to contain an entire circle of bodies, each with their head facing inward, as if locked in eternal conversation. In England, Clergy often sprinkled earth and salt over the first body placed in the trench, muttering a quick blessing before retreating. In some cases, pits were hurriedly sealed with nothing but a wooden board and dirt. Yet in wealthier parishes, volunteers would attempt to preserve a sense of dignity, lining trenches with old altar cloths or shrouds salvaged from churches now emptied by death. In Poland, archaeologists uncovered a site in which every single body had a stone placed in the mouth. This may have been a cultural belief to prevent the dead from rising, a quiet gesture to contain fear, not dramatic, just cautious, just careful, just in case. In France, especially around Paris, it was discovered that musicians, flutists, singers and fiddlers were among the most frequently buried in clusters. Not because they were targeted, but because they stayed. They played on, for those dying, for the grieving. They played in the street, and were often the first to fall. Whispers of disease, what the bodies tell us. Thanks to advances in bioarchaeology, many plague pit discoveries now allow for DNA testing of ancient remains, and through this, the dead begin to whisper. In some bodies, Yersinia pestis, the bacterium responsible for plague, is still present, deep in the molars, locked behind enamel. Others carry signs of co-infections, tuberculosis, smallpox, syphilis. It seems the 17th century body, worn and burdened, had often been a battlefield long before the plague arrived. In one pit in the Netherlands, the entire lower half of a man's face had deteriorated in life due to a rare fungal infection. His jawbone, now cracked and sunken, showed he had survived years of eating in agony. He likely lived alone, likely died alone. The plague was only the last visitor at his door. And then there are the pregnant women, revealed through tiny fetal bones pressed close against the hips of the mother's remains. In one trench, 6 such women were found in a single line, as though they'd been grouped together. One wonders, was that coincidence or compassion? The strangest finds, artifacts of memory and magic. Not every item in the pits is grim. Some hint at a deep longing for continuity, for love, for hope. In southern France, a woman was found clutching a ceramic dove, glazed, brightly painted, perfectly intact. A symbol of peace, perhaps of the soul. It had not broken during burial. It lay beside her ribs, untouched, its eye still watching skyward. In Prague, researchers unearthed a wooden pipe, carved with a tiny face, smiling. The stem had long since rotted, but the bowl remained. Perhaps a man in his final days chose to bring with him a small comfort from life. In Denmark, a rare plague doctor amulet was discovered, a tiny carved bead in the shape of the beaked mask itself. A parody, a talisman, or merely a dark joke passed among frightened hands. And in London, inside a shallow pit near a riverbank, was found a rosary, beads worn smooth by endless use, the crucifix missing. Was it lost, or buried intentionally as a token of surrender? These objects whisper of who these people were, not just that they died, but that they lived, and hoped, and feared, and loved. Of sounds and smells, imagining the atmosphere. Even in sleep, the senses imagine. So let's take a moment to conjure the atmosphere, not the horror of it, but the texture. Imagine the sound of earth being dug, slowly, rhythmically, shovels scraping stone, groaning as they pull through roots. Then silence, then another clink. Birds chirp overhead, life doesn't pause. The smell of sweat, of damp linen, of the faint acidic scent of vinegar-soaked rags worn as masks. The occasional distant toll of a bell, tolling not for ceremony, but simply to keep count. The quiet murmurs of prayer, the muttered Latin, the repetition of names remembered under breath, the word mercy, again and again, and through it all, the wind, carrying the scent of soil, dried herbs, old bark. A strangely peaceful scene, And then it's over. The trench is covered, a cross may be planted, or perhaps just a rock, a broken plate, a shoe nailed to a tree. Time begins again, and what was terror becomes soil, becomes memory, becomes a park, or a garden, or a quiet place where you now sit and listen. The pits, today, echoes in the modern world. Many plague pits have never been excavated. They're known only through vague records, beyond the orchard, near the willow grove, under the east wall. In Edinburgh, an entire district was unknowingly built over one. In Venice, tourists sip coffee above another. And in Lagos, Istanbul, Delhi, and other older cities, the pattern repeats. Wherever life once clustered densely, the plague visited. Sometimes modern construction uncovers them by accident. A shopping mall halted, a subway rerouted, a housing estate paused mid-foundation. What happens next varies. Some pits are respectfully reburied, others are quietly moved. Occasionally, a small plaque appears, often overlooked, but most remain unmarked. Still, you may walk over one someday, without knowing, and that's okay, because their story doesn't need to shout, it simply needs to be heard. Once, just like now. And if you were still awake, just barely, let the soft rhythm of the rain carry you the rest of the way, like a hush falling over old stone streets, or the quiet after the final page of a forgotten story. You're listening to Faint Echoes, a place where the past speaks softly and never demands to be heard. Sleep well, dream gently, and let the rain do the rest. Good night.